Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When a battle-hardened sniper seeks peace on his own land, the last thing he expects is war, with a suburban HOA. But when drones appear over his fence and lies spread like wildfire, he doesn't back down. He locks, loads, and proves one truth: some fences are worth fighting for. When we first moved into the house, I didn't think much of the giant pine trees that line the southern edge of the property. My wife Lynn said they looked like sentinels, and maybe she was right. They felt old and deliberate, like they'd seen too much and stood still anyway. That was part of what drew me to this place. It wasn't just the land, it was the silence that came with it. Space, solitude, a clean perimeter. After over a decade in the Marine Corps, 8 of those as a sniper, and 3 more doing private security across too many hellholes with names the press will never print, I finally wanted a place where no one was breathing down my neck. Crimson Pines Estates, the HOA-controlled suburb just over the ridge, was the opposite of that. Their fake stone gates and spotless sidewalks looked like a crime scene just waiting to happen. I didn't live there for a reason. Our house sat on 4 acres of freedom, legally and physically outside the jurisdiction of the HOA. That was explicitly written into the deed. I double-checked, triple-checked. My attorney verified it. Then I took it to a county surveyor and watched him mark the lines with a laser scanner. There was no ambiguity. My dirt was mine. And no one, not a board, not a committee, not even a particularly motivated Karen, could change that. For a few weeks, everything was perfect. Lynn and I settled into a quiet rhythm. She ran her art classes out of the converted barn studio, and I started picking up consulting gigs on tactical security systems. When it cooled off in the evenings, we'd swim together in the pool I built by hand. 55 feet long, saline system, recessed lighting. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. And that's what made it worse when the drone showed up. The first time I noticed it, I was cleaning out the skimmer baskets. Mid-afternoon, hot as hell. I looked up and there it was, small, black, maybe the size of a football, hovering about 20 feet above the fence line. I figured some kid was testing out a toy from the cul-de-sac above. I gave it a middle finger just in case it had a camera, then forgot about it. But Lynn saw it again 3 days later, at night. She was in the pool. I was inside fixing us drinks. She called out, quietly but firmly, like she wasn't sure if she should be alarmed or amused. When I stepped outside, the thing was hovering again just above the backyard, lower this time, and it wasn't drifting. It was stabilizing, recalibrating, actively adjusting to her movements. I watched as it tilted its gimbal, locked onto her shoulders. She was holding a towel against her chest, clearly uncomfortable, and then it dipped slightly, like it was trying to get a better view. That's when the blood cooled. This wasn't a toy. This was a high-grade surveillance drone, and whoever was flying it knew exactly what they were doing. The second it zipped away, I ran a scan for open signals with one of my handheld jammers. Didn't catch a lock, but I saw enough intermittent pings to know it wasn't just freelancing. This thing had a base. The next morning, I walked the full perimeter. Took me 45 minutes, including down near the old irrigation ditch. That's where I found it, a shallow scuff mark in the dirt about 4 inches long, next to the rear fence, just enough to suggest someone had stood there, or something had landed. Nearby, a low branch had a fresh split. And the kicker: a small smudge on the fence panel, gray paint transfer, exactly the kind used on carbon fiber drone shells. I didn't get mad. Not yet. I went inside, ran a diagnostic on my home security network, and adjusted the auto-tracking on the infrared cameras. Then I cleaned my Winchester Model 70, zeroed it in at 30 yards, and made sure the scope was dialed tight. 2 days later, it came back, around 6 in the evening. This time, I was ready. I watched it rise above the HOA ridgeline like a smug little wasp, dipping just above the trees before sliding over the fence. It paused, leveled, hovered, maybe 30 feet above ground. It began to rotate, slow and smooth, aligning with the edge of the pool. I stepped out onto the porch, rifle already slung. Took my time, knees locked. One breath in, slow exhale. The bullet took it clean through the motor arm. It jerked sideways, sputtered, and cartwheeled straight into the gravel near the garden bed. A soft, mechanical crunch. Dead. I walked over. The shell was cracked. Internal wiring exposed. It was more expensive than I thought, possibly custom. No identifying marks on the chassis, but I'd seen enough of these in Kandahar to know that no hobbyist flew with a rig like that. This was surveillance grade, easily worth a few $1,000. I picked it up by the rotor blade and tossed it in a bin in my garage, right between the box of old field gear and a coiled length of concertina wire. Lynn asked me that night if we should be worried. I said no. We had footage. We had evidence. And if anyone wanted to make a fuss, they could take it up with the state laws of Arizona. I smiled when I said it, but inside, something was already shifting. Whoever sent that drone thought they could watch us without consequences, thought I'd just shrug it off. They didn't realize where they were. They were standing in my sights. 2 days after I shot down the drone, a large manila envelope appeared in my mailbox. No postage. Hand-delivered, stamped with the crimson insignia of the Crimson Pines Estates Homeowners Association. I brought it inside and opened it on the kitchen counter while Lynn poured coffee. We didn't speak. We both knew it wasn't going to be friendly. The first page was a formal letter. Legal font, bolded headers, stuffed with jargon and passive-aggressive bile. According to the HOA, I had willfully destroyed association property and was being held liable for damages totaling $14,768. In addition, they accused me of endangering community airspace, violating universal surveillance standards, and, this was my favorite, interfering with emergency ecological monitoring. They demanded not only payment, but also scheduled access to inspect the property for compliance with environmental and visual harmony guidelines. I snorted so hard I nearly choked on my toast. Visual harmony, I said. Lynn was reading over my shoulder. Apparently our hammock is polluting the HOA's chakra alignment. It would have been funny if it wasn't so calculated. This wasn't about a drone. It was a legal probe, a slow test of the perimeter, the kind of pressure campaign that wore people down until they just gave in. I'd seen this tactic in Afghanistan. You don't knock down the door. You make people question if it's even their door anymore. I called Rachel Quinn, my attorney, and within 5 minutes of reading the letter, she was laughing so hard she had to put me on hold. When she came back, her tone shifted. "Jokes aside, they've crossed a line," she said. The surveillance alone could constitute a Class 5 felony under Arizona Statute 13-3019. She explained it plainly. Any person who uses electronic equipment to record or monitor someone inside their home or on their property aware without consent commits a criminal invasion of privacy. Doesn't matter if it's ecological or otherwise. If it's got a camera and it's watching your wife swim at night, it's a damn felony. I gave her the footage. Front-facing security cam caught everything. The drone's descent, Lynn wrapping herself in a towel mid-swim, its weird rotational hover, then my clean shot. We also pulled some signal data from my tracking logs. Nothing concrete, but enough ping patterns to show the drone was being manually operated from within HOA boundaries. Rachel filed a cease and desist and a preservation order for all HOA drone footage and flight logs. I made digital copies of everything and uploaded it to a cloud server I trusted. Lynn suggested printing it all out and stapling it to the HOA's clubhouse door like Martin Luther. I told her I'd consider it if things got biblical. 2 nights later, the perimeter sensor pinged again. I was in the garage when it triggered. It wasn't just the motion detection, it was the frequency signature, the same pattern as before, only stronger, closer. I checked the live feed. Another drone, same chassis. Smaller this time, smarter. It was scanning. I didn't go for the rifle. Not this time. I walked straight into the backyard, stared right at the thing, and raised a cardboard sign I'd made earlier that afternoon. It read, "Trespass again, and you'll need a subpoena to recover the pieces." The drone backed off. But the next day, things got messier. Someone had slipped flyers under the windshields of cars parked near my fence line. Lynn found one while taking out the trash. It showed a blurry photo of me holding my rifle, pulled from my own security footage, which meant someone had hacked my exterior cams or stolen the data stream. The caption read, "Dangerous veteran in neighborhood, armed and unstable, HOA under attack." We weren't just being watched, we were being framed. Later that same day, our neighbor Ted, a decent guy, retired Air Force, quiet, came over looking uncomfortable. He said he got a strange letter in his mailbox, supposedly from me, warning him to keep his mouth shut about HOA surveillance or else. Signed Garrett B. I asked to see the letter. It was laser printed, folded neatly, no return address, just my name typed at the bottom, no signature. I held it up to the light. No watermark, no fingerprints, nothing. I knew exactly what this was. A setup, a coward's move, psychological pressure. Classic play. Isolate the subject, create suspicion, make them look unstable and hostile. Don't worry, I told Ted. You'll be subpoenaed as a witness in a counterclaim soon enough. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared. Because I was counting steps. Steps to the gate. Steps from the gate to the HOA office. From the HOA office to the home of Karen Welsh, self-declared president and wannabe warlord of Crimson Pines. Lynn asked me what I was planning. I told her the truth. We tried playing defense, I said. Now it's time to go on offense. The envelope came by courier this time. Certified, signature required, which was funny considering what it contained. Inside, a stack of documents from the Maricopa County District Court. Crimson Pines Estates HOA was suing me. Civil action. The charges were laughable. Property destruction, aggressive behavior, endangerment of public safety, non-compliance with community oversight, and, my personal favorite, hostility toward environmental inspection procedures. Lynn held the papers like they were radioactive. They're trying to claim your yard is part of their HOA, she said. Again. Cute, I muttered. Still doesn't make it true. Rachel reviewed everything line by line. She wasn't laughing anymore. They're serious, she said. This is a full-on litigation assault. They're hoping to intimidate you into a settlement. Not happening. We filed an immediate response, denying every claim. Rachel also filed a motion to dismiss based on lack of jurisdiction and attached a counterclaim of our own. Criminal surveillance, invasion of privacy, harassment, and defamation. We weren't just defending anymore, we were attacking. Meanwhile, the neighborhood started acting strange. Cars slowed when they passed our property. People stared. A few mothers walking strollers down the trail behind the fence crossed to the other side of the street when they saw me. Something was in the air. I didn't have to wait long to find out what. That evening, I got a call from an old friend, Marcus, a cybersecurity analyst who owed me a favor from a job overseas. He ran a scan of the local network traffic and confirmed what I already suspected. Someone had spoofed my IP address to sign up for extremist forums and militia groups online. They had also registered my name to half a dozen mailing lists associated with anti-government conspiracy theories. All recently, all from inside the HOA's network. It was a smear campaign, digital, coordinated, and malicious. Rachel was furious. This is beyond defamation, she said. This is targeted character assassination with intent to influence judicial perception. The next morning, it got worse. I opened my email and found a press request. A reporter from Channel 9 News wanted to give me a chance to tell my side of the story. What story? I turned on the TV and found out. Karen Welsh, HOA president and absolute sociopath, was sitting in a studio chair, tears clinging to the corners of her eyes like they were staged by a drama coach. She wore a powder blue blazer and spoke with practiced fragility. We never meant to escalate things, she told the camera, but this man, he patrols his yard with a rifle, he yells at children, he threatened our drone team. He said, "We're not part of your system and we don't have to follow your rules." The anchor nodded solemnly. "Are you afraid?" Karen's eyes glistened. "We just want to feel safe in our own community." I threw a remote so hard it shattered against the far wall. The entire segment was one long fabrication. She painted me as an unhinged survivalist, a veteran with PTSD, a danger to peaceful suburban families. Marcus traced the data packets from the news station's preview link. It was uploaded 2 days prior, before the lawsuit was even served. This was premeditated, he said. A full rollout. They planned the suit, then the media framing, then the community reaction. Classic pressure triangle. Lynn and I were now officially the villains of the neighborhood, at least in the eyes of those too lazy to question a good sob story. The next week was hell. HOA flyers kept showing up on car windshields. Say no to armed aggression, with my face blurred in grayscale, looking like a mugshot. Online, fake accounts started commenting on my business page, calling me unstable, dangerous, unfit for consulting work. A client even called to cancel a contract, citing public safety concerns. But the worst came from the inside. Our neighbor on the west side, Cheryl, retired schoolteacher, sweet but nosy, came over shaking. She'd received a letter, again supposedly from me. This one had threats. "Keep your damn cameras off my house or I'll turn them into mulch." My name was printed at the bottom, same font, same formatting as the last fake. That was the final straw. We called in a private forensic specialist. He analyzed the printed material and cross-compared the font metadata with the HOA's previous paper mailings. The result? Identical fonts, identical formatting settings, and matching printer artifacts, small ink dispersal patterns unique to specific rollers. It was a smoking gun, and it smelled like Karen. We filed an updated counterclaim. Forged documents, impersonation, cyber harassment, malicious framing, and organized defamation. Rachel had the evidence bound, scanned, and ready, but I wanted more. That night, I called Marcus again. I want to know what else they've got. I want server access, IP logs, drone telemetry, everything. He paused. This isn't a game, Garrett. I know, I said. It's war. I wore a charcoal gray suit to court. Not military issue, not tactical. Just sharp, clean, respectable. Optics matter when the other side's already painted you as a lunatic in camo screaming at clouds. Lynn told me I looked like a lawyer who could also kill you with a spoon. I took that as a compliment. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp in Maricopa County Superior Court. Rachel was already inside when I arrived, sorting our exhibits and cross-referencing timestamps. She barely looked up when I sat beside her. "You nervous?" I asked. She grinned. "They should be." Across the room sat Karen Welsh in a stiff beige pantsuit that looked like it had never bent at the waist. She had 2 HOA board members flanking her like silent secretaries. No lawyers from a major firm, just a guy named Milner, probably her nephew or someone she bullied into passing the bar. The judge, an older man with a white mustache and no patience for theater, called the session to order. 8 HOA's attorney began, voice syrupy and slow, laying out their grievances. Property destruction, community destabilization, threatening behavior. He used words like hostility, paranoia, and danger to collective harmony. Then Rachel stood. Our client, she said, acted entirely within his rights under Arizona Revised Statute 133019 and was, in fact, the victim of systematic and illegal surveillance orchestrated by this HOA. She handed the clerk a USB drive. Exhibit A. The courtroom monitors lit up. Security footage from my backyard, time-stamped, night vision on. The drone appeared on screen like a glowing wasp, buzzing over the pool where Lynn floated in silence. She clutched a towel to her chest and ducked below the waterline. The drone descended to just a few feet above her. Someone gasped. Not theatrics. It was genuine. Then the footage cut to me stepping out onto the patio, calm and deliberate, rifle in hand. One shot, clean. The drone spun midair and dropped like a stone. Rachel continued. This footage was taken on Mr. Boston's private property. The drone, as you can see, entered airspace below 10 feet and hovered with a stabilized camera directly over the private residence's pool. That is a felony act under both state privacy law and FAA drone regulation. She switched slides. Exhibit B. Drone telemetry logs Marcus had cracked. The data traced command and control signals back to an IP address registered to a HOA administrative account. Internal timestamps matched the flight times exactly. Exhibit C. A forensic comparison of printed materials, fake letters signed with my name, versus official HOA notices. The printer ID signature, formatting quirks, and font versions matched. The same machine printed both. Karen squirmed. Her attorney fumbled. Then the real moment landed. Rachel cued one last clip. Internal HOA emails, leaked anonymously from someone on their own board. Karen's name at the top. Her words in writing. If we let that man do whatever he wants, others will follow. His pool is a breeding ground for non-compliance. Surveillance is the only option until we force jurisdiction. She said that. Force jurisdiction. About a man who legally wasn't under their authority. About me. The judge leaned back and exhaled through his nose. Does the HOA deny the authenticity of this email? He asked. Karen's attorney didn't answer. Karen stood up on her own. That footage doesn't show the whole picture, she snapped. It was environmental monitoring. He has unregulated lights, chlorine runoff. He's creating a mosquito hazard. The judge raised a hand. Mrs. Welsh, sit down. She did, reluctantly. Fuming, Rachel calmly closed her folder. Your Honor, the HOA not only trespassed, but has been engaging in coordinated defamation, forgery, unauthorized surveillance, and attempted manipulation of public perception through media framing. The judge didn't render a final decision that day, But he did drop the HOA's claims from immediate consideration and scheduled a separate review to determine whether their actions constituted criminal misconduct. We walked out of the courtroom with no money lost, no fines paid, and their narrative in ruins. Outside, a reporter from Channel 9 tried to rush us. "Mr. Boston, do you have a statement about the allegations from the HOA?" I stopped walking and looked him square in the eye. "Yeah," I said. "You aired a story about a dangerous veteran. Maybe next time you check your footage before you help a Karen commit a felony." Then I kept walking. By the time we got home, Lynn had already taken down the flyers someone taped to our mailbox. This time they read, "Justice is coming for the HOA." I had no idea who put them there. Maybe someone was finally paying attention. For a few days after the hearing, things got quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet, the kind that makes your teeth itch. Karen had been publicly humiliated in court. Her lawsuit stalled, her narrative blown apart. But people like her don't take losses gracefully. They regroup, they dig, they retaliate. I didn't have to wait long. It started small. One morning, my front gate refused to open. I assumed it was a sensor glitch until I noticed the receiver had been tampered with. Wires clipped, rewired, and hastily tucked back into place. Whoever did it wasn't trying to destroy it. They were trying to access it. I reinstalled the firmware, rolled the logs, and found a strange anomaly. Someone had activated the gate using a duplicate signal. I checked the access codes. A cloned remote. Same frequency, slightly offset timestamp, which meant someone had intercepted my transmitter, duplicated it, and tried to slip in unnoticed. At 3 in the morning, I called Marcus. "Sounds like brute force replay," he said. "Somebody tried to capture your remote's frequency and replay it." "That's not casual, that's methodical." I upgraded the security, encrypted the gate with dynamic rolling codes, the kind used by modern car key fobs. Then I installed a motion-triggered strobe system and added an extra backup camera above the hedges. The next night, it paid off. Footage showed a hooded figure walking up the side path around 2:40 a.m., holding what looked like a small black remote. He approached the garage entrance. The gate clicked, opened a few inches, then froze. He backed off, panicked by the sudden floodlight. Then he ran. The next morning, I walked the path myself, found a fresh shoe print in the soft dirt and, more interestingly, a tiny piece of plastic broken off near the keypad. It was part of a universal signal cloner. I'd seen them used in corporate espionage jobs. Not cheap, not legal. I gave the evidence to Rachel, who added it to our growing criminal complaint. But I was tired of playing defense. I needed to know who the hell was helping her. That's when Marcus delivered the jackpot. He'd gained access to a server run by the HOA's Security Oversight Committee. Inside were archived emails, access logs, even personnel records. One entry caught my eye. A contract invoice for a perimeter technician, name redacted, paid in cash, with instructions to restore access to Southwest Gate for inspection window. The date matched the night someone tried to break in. Rachel filed an emergency petition to subpoena the HOA's internal communications. That was already in motion, but while the legal wheels turned slowly, the neighborhood turned fast. Suddenly, people weren't so sure what to think. Ted came by again. He'd heard rumors, not about me this time, but about the HOA's drone practices, the fake letters, and the cloned access codes. Someone inside the HOA had apparently grown a conscience. An anonymous letter was circulating with screenshots of Karen's internal orders, including phrases like "escalate surveillance until compliance" and "psychological pressure works better than fines." HOA board meetings had become war zones. Karen tried to assert control, but someone leaked the video of her courtroom meltdown. It hit social media, then local Reddit threads, then the Flagstaff Newswire. One user spliced it into a meme with the caption, "She watched too close. Now everyone watches her." I didn't make it, but I shared it. Of course, Karen didn't take that well. A week later, Channel 9 ran a new segment, HOA Tensions Escalate, Armed Resident Rejects Neighborhood Standards. This time, they interviewed a different board member, claiming the HOA was under siege and had no choice but to escalate. Enforcement to preserve community peace. The headline showed my name again. They used a still frame of me holding my rifle. Lynn turned off the TV and looked at me across the living room. "You know she's going to keep pushing," she said, "until something breaks." I nodded. It's going to be her. That night, I found another flyer pinned to our mailbox. No name, no signature, Just one line printed in bold. Even shadows can bleed. I took it down, brought it inside, set it on the table. Then I opened the safe, checked the rifle, and started planning phase 2. They scheduled the next hearing for a Friday. I liked that. Let the HOA sweat all weekend. Rachel was ready. So was I. This wasn't just about defending anymore. This was full-scale counteroffensive. Our case file had grown from a few surveillance clips to a meticulously organized assault package. Forged letters, hacked gates, impersonation, drone telemetry, and a PDF of Karen's internal correspondence titled Compliance Escalation Strategy. Arrived early. Karen and her legal puppet, Milner, were already there, flanked by 2 new faces, probably PR consultants or damage control specialists. Karen looked worse than before. Not unwell, more like cornered. The kind of brittle posture that screams, "I've lost control, but I'll gnaw your ankle off before I admit it." The judge looked tired, like he knew exactly what circus he was walking into. Rachel stood. Her voice was calm, confident. "Your Honor, we are here today not simply to address the defendant's privacy violations, but to show a pattern, a systematic, deliberate campaign to surveil, harass, and publicly damage my client, Mr. Boston, with the ultimate goal of forcing him under the HOA's jurisdiction unlawfully." She presented a flow chart, literal arrows connecting drone flights, fake letters, media leaks, digital smears, gate tampering, and leaked HOA orders. Every event documented, time-stamped, and linked to Karen's internal emails or HOA server logs. Then she dropped the heavy one. The cloned remote was recovered and analyzed. It matches signal parameters logged by Mr. Boston's gate system on the night of attempted entry. The device is registered to a known security contractor, subcontracted by HOA under a cash invoice. We subpoenaed the contractor. He testified that he was instructed by someone named Karen to access the property for unauthorized inspection under threat of being dropped from future jobs. The judge blinked. Karen looked like she might physically implode. Milner mumbled something about unverified testimonies. Rachel didn't let up. She called in the handwriting expert. He confirmed the so-called letters from Garrett, the ones accusing neighbors, threatening people, were all printed using the exact same office laser printer used for HOA newsletters. Identical toner signature, matching wear on the feed rollers. Then came the digital forensics. Marcus had submitted a sworn affidavit showing that the HOA's IP range had been used to create multiple online accounts in my name, all used to sign up for radical forms and anti-government mailing lists. Even the press contact for Channel 9 had received a tip from one of those fake accounts. All roads led back to Karen's system. The judge stared at the evidence table like it was radioactive. "Do you have anything to add, Mrs. Welsh?" he asked. She stood slowly. "I never authorized any of that," she said. "If someone acted, they did so on their own. But that man," she pointed at me, finger trembling, "he wants to live here without rules. He disrespects order. He wants chaos. He thinks guns give him the right to ignore our standards." Rachel raised a brow. "Your Honor, may we replay Exhibit 42? It was the internal HOA Zoom recording. Someone had leaked it to us, and where Karen, with wine in hand, muttered to the board, 'Let him point his damn rifle at the sky. We'll drain him in court until he sells the house or shoots a tree out of frustration.' That was the kill shot. The judge didn't bang a gavel. He just sighed. 'I'm issuing an immediate injunction against further contact or surveillance by the HOA. A separate evidentiary hearing will be scheduled to determine civil damages and whether criminal referral is warranted.' Karen opened her mouth to speak again. "Mrs. Welsh," the judge cut in, "say another word and I'll find you in contempt." We left the courtroom in silence. No reporters this time, no headlines. Just murmurs behind us as HOA board members looked at Karen like they were realizing they'd backed the wrong lunatic. Back home, I poured a drink, sat in the gazebo, and pulled up the HOA's website. Their public comment section had been temporarily disabled due to unusually high activity. Still, someone had managed to leave a single line before the lockout. She thought she could surveil a sniper. Turns out, he's better at watching back. The week after the injunction, I expected silence. What I got was backlash. HOA members started resigning quietly. No fanfare, no apologies, just names disappearing from the directory. Karen, however, held on like a roach in a flood. Her emails stopped. Her press appearances dried up. but I knew she wasn't done. That's the thing with control freaks. Even when they lose, they can't help reaching for the reins one last time. Then one night, Lynn got a call. It was her sister in Phoenix. She'd just gotten an anonymous email from a burner address. The subject line was, "Is your sister safe with him?" Inside, a cropped still from one of our old backyard surveillance videos. Me, rifle in hand, shirtless, looking intense. The image was black and white, grainy, and clearly meant to look threatening. The message beneath read, "Ask yourself, what happens when the next drone doesn't fly away?" Lynn handed me the phone without a word. I stared at the screen, calm on the outside. Inside, my pulse was a drumbeat. This wasn't pressure anymore. This was veiled threat. I called Rachel. "We need to move," I said. "No more hearings, no more counterclaims. Full lawsuit, civil and personal." We filed a formal suit against Karen Welsh, not the HOA, but Karen specifically, for invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, attempted unauthorized access of private property, and digital impersonation with malicious intent. Damages requested, $1.2 million. We also filed a separate criminal complaint, attaching all previously submitted evidence, plus the new burner email. Marcus traced the IP. It bounced through a few proxies, but the original location. A secondary HOA-owned laptop registered under Community Compliance Media. Karen had weaponized HOA assets for personal revenge. Then came the press conference. Rachel was smart about it. We didn't go to the news. We invited the news to us. We held it on my lawn under the Arizona sky, right beside the pool Karen had watched obsessively for months. Rachel laid it out point by point. The drone footage, the gate tampering, the fake letters, the smear campaigns. She passed around copies of the forensic reports, gave statements from digital experts, and read direct quotes from Karen's internal emails. Then Lynn stepped up to the mic. She didn't say much, just enough. "I don't care if my husband was a Marine, a dentist, or a kindergarten teacher. What Karen did wasn't about safety. It was about power. She watched me in my bathing suit at night. She tried to ruin my husband's life with lies. And when that didn't work, she tried to scare my family. Her voice didn't shake once. She deserves to be remembered for what she really is, a coward with a drone." The next morning, every major local paper ran the story. HOA meltdown in Flagstaff, private property war, from drones to defamation, the fall of Crimson Pines. By noon, Karen had locked her personal social media accounts. HOA's official page was offline. The Crimson Pines community forum was flooded with posts demanding her resignation, but she still didn't step down. Not until the court date. During the hearing, the judge didn't even blink when the totality of the complaint was laid out. Rachel cross-referenced civil code with constitutional privacy protections. The video clips hit harder the second time. The manipulated flyers, the IP spoofing, the media manipulation, the emotional testimony from Lynn. Karen tried to speak. The judge stopped her cold. "You are not a victim," he said. "You are a civic bully with access to resources you grossly misused." Then came the ruling. Karen Welsh was found personally liable for malicious misconduct, gross invasion of privacy, and defamation. The HOA, by extension, was ordered to issue a public apology and pay compensatory damages in the amount of $800,000. Karen herself, fined $240,000, and stripped of all authority in the HOA, effective immediately. They escorted her out of the courtroom before the cameras caught her tears. I watched her go. No smile, no victory pose, just a long exhale. The war was over, almost. 3 months later, the backyard was different. Not quieter, not safer, just freer. Lynn had convinced me to build a new gazebo, wide, shaded, with open beams and dark stained cedar that smelled like memory. I spent a week measuring angles and countersinking screws, ignoring calls from reporters, book agents, podcast hosts. Everyone wanted the sniper versus the HOA story. I didn't answer most of them. I wasn't interested in fame. I was interested in reminders. That's why I put up the sign. Right on the face of the gazebo, carved into a sanded oak plank, were the words, "Don't fly over my fence. My wife is not your content. Watch your own damn pool." Visitors laughed when they saw it. Even Ted, who used to walk past my house like I was radioactive, brought me beer one night and read the sign 3 times in a row before shaking my hand. "Hell of a message," he said. "No drones lately?" "Not one," I said. "Not since the verdict." Karen disappeared from public life. Word was she moved to Scottsdale to stay with a cousin. Some said she was planning to sue the HOA for abandoning her. Others claimed she was trying to rebuild her real estate license. Didn't matter. Around here, she'd become folklore. A warning. The HOA was different now. Transparent meetings, voluntary feedback channels. They even removed the visual harmony clause from their charter after a community vote. Big win for lawn flamingos and off-color patio furniture. Lynn went back to teaching. Her classes were full, mostly locals now. Some came just to meet the sniper's wife, but they stayed for her landscapes and night sky work. As for me, I filed for a teaching license, not in art, in private security law and cyber defense. Rachel said the demand was growing. Veterans who knew the legal side, not just the tactics. I built a syllabus, pitched it to a community college, and got approved within 2 weeks. Funny thing about HOA battles, people love to laugh at them until they live through one. Then they want to understand how it all works. The pool was still ours. The fence still stood. The cameras still blinked, quietly tracking nothing but shadows and squirrels. Some nights I sat outside, drink in hand, watching the stars just in case one of them started buzzing again. And when the wind was just right, I could almost hear the echo of that courtroom. You are not a victim. You are a civic bully with access to resources you grossly misused. That line stayed with me, because sometimes the only thing louder than a rifle is a sentence in the right courtroom.